on YouTube. We have a quorum tonight with the board, including to my right, Mr. Ricky and Mrs. Schnabel, and to my left, Mr. Rush. Mr. Abram is absent tonight, and that's excused. Also, tonight's meeting, we will have, we do have a quorum. It will still take 3 votes of any sort to either support or defeat a motion. And those votes will be taken by voice vote. There is no scheduled executive session, but if we did have one, why the vote would be a roll call vote. Did I miss anything? It's been a while. We just came back from our summer hiatus, and I think we covered everything. Okay, so having said that, we do have an opportunity for public speaking. That'll be the second item in the meeting. If you're in Facebook or YouTube land, you can make comments, and Mr. Komevsky to my right will be at the table. We'll be monitoring those and read them as they come up. If you're in the audience, of course, let us raise your hand and we'll call on you. You have 3 minutes to speak your mind in the beginning and another opportunity at the end of the meeting. And the same thing is true with the Facebook universe. You can enter comments at any time during the meeting. They'll be read at the end of the meeting. So I think now, Mr. Rush, that works. Oh, yeah. We also have in the room tonight, thank you, recognizing everyone that's here. We have, in lieu of Mr. Monroe, who is taking his son off to his first day of college, we have Mr. Uranich, who's the Chief of Utilities Operation in the acting role of Chief Utilities Executive. And also from staff tonight, we have Mr. Robert Komevsky, who's the Facilities and Asset Maintenance Manager. And we have Mr. Bill Logan, who is the Finance something or other for the utility. Also with us tonight, sorry, a little out of practice. We have Attorney Connie Carr, who is from the Sealy Savage law firm, just trying to keep us between the ditches during the meeting. In the audience tonight, I know of Mr. Zimmerman and Ms. Gentry from City Council. We have another gentleman here that I do not know his name, William Terry
Robinson.
Robinson. Okay, Robinson or
Robinson.
with just no son, no.
Robinson. Yeah, no N in the middle.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, Mr. Robinson, thank you for joining us tonight. And sorry for my little bit awkward introduction. I'm a little out of practice. Okay, having gone through the original perfunctory items, let's move on to the approval of minutes of the July 2nd meeting. Are there any remarks on the July 2nd minutes? Okay. I see they have been duly corrected and they are approved as submitted. Next item is that public speakers item. Do we have anything, first of all, from the world of Facebook and or YouTube?
We have no comments.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Komevsky. People in the audience, Ms. Gentry.
I have one question
Would you
regarding.
mind coming up to the microphone?
Yes.
Councilwoman Gentry.
So I just had a question regarding the purchase of the property. There's been rumors, and so I just wanted to get a confirmation. Has the property purchase agreement been complete for the ALERG?
In other words, have we closed or has the purchase agreement has been completed for
Yeah, closed, sorry.
Attorney Carr?
Yes.
Has closed, okay.
And did we get the additional information from ALERG that I know that they had extended the 45 days so that they could continue doing the research on the property?
Correct. We got the summary of all the information. The phase 2 report has not yet been completed, but the summary of all the areas of concern were completed.
Okay. And I'm assuming, I haven't had a chance to read it, but I'm assuming that, were you planning on reviewing the actual data or just going with the summary? I'm assuming the summary was
No,
sufficient to
when
make the
we
decision.
see it, we will review the data. We are not, as far as I know, in possession of that at this
That
time.
will come when the phase 2 is completed.
Okay, but we haven't seen it, so.
Yeah, it's not completed, so when it is, then that would be distributed and you would have access to whatever data that
Okay,
you would
and I
choose to
believe
review.
that there is some request from your group that wants to see it, and that'll be available as soon as we've cleared all the hurdles out of the closing.
Okay,
matter.
but that wasn't part of the closing requirement, so it's
No.
done. Okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Robinson,
Yeah, very good.
had to think about it.
Pardon
Had to think about it.
me? I just had a couple comments. One had to deal with the purchase, but also I wanted to belatedly thank you and Avon Lake Regional Water staff for removing the dead trees at the underground storage location south of Lake Road. They were there for a couple years, still being mulched, and I'm the chair of the tree commission. I just wanted to offer our services, our help in selecting new trees and teaching the people who take care of that area on how to take care of the trees and how to mulch them, because I think that's what the issue was with those. That's why they didn't survive, is they weren't cared for very well, and they probably weren't very good stock when they were planted. So that's one offer for help I'd be glad to give you. But second, maybe I'm late to the game here, but if you proceed with this purchase of the old coal yard, will you be able to assure Avon Lake residents that over 75 years of coal residues and still having coal fines out there and the byproducts created from contact of those with precipitation has not created or will not create compounds that will leach into groundwater and into Lake Erie? And along those lines, is there any future liability, environmental liability that the city and Avon Lake Regional Water will be culpable for once that purchase is finished? If things are found after the purchase is made, are you, as the city, us, responsible for that cleanup then at that point?
And you are free to correct me at any point if I misstate anything, but all of the sampling that was done were to monitor the movement of the groundwater. Based off the testing that was completed, they were not detecting any migration of the contaminants from off the site. So all of the sampling was done with the plan to pursue the voluntary action program through the Ohio EPA. That was the areas that they focused their testing on as part of the summary. They did not find anything in there that would prevent us from seeking that. So that was what we needed to perform as part of the due diligence prior to closing.
Who did the testing?
Verdantis.
Verdantis. And they found, and there was a voluntary action plan filed with the state?
It was not filed with the state. They based their testing off of what would be needed to file for that.
And you're assured there's no acidity, no heavy metals, nothing was found, nothing was found?
Let me answer as best we can.
Okay.
We retained an environmental expert,
Yeah.
which is Verdantis, who is a certified professional,
Yeah.
one of the few in the state, who actually helps write the rules for the state on these areas.
Mhm.
So he first looked over the shoulder of Deegan, which is the environmental expert of ALERG, to verify that he agreed with what they did. They have been the one doing all the cleanup. They've done an excellent job based on everything that he's reviewed. He did his own testing because he wanted more samples, because to go through the voluntary action program, which is something this board will entertain doing, there were more samples needed to be collected to meet the minimums required by the state. So what we asked him to do when he was doing additional testing that was incorporated into the memo that we received late in July was two things. We wanted to make sure that the traveling of surface water and ground and so forth would not make it into the lake. So he did additional testing to verify the pathway, to confirm that we've not found any evidence it's coming anywhere close to that. Secondly, he has been looking at any risk to the groundwater. We could not find any risk that would come there because what's in that area does not go into potable water. So based on that, we asked him to determine, is he finding anything that will prevent us from being able to apply to the voluntary action program? Because we know that that's a likelihood that we may want to do. He found nothing in the testing that he did that would prevent us from being able to seek an NFA through the voluntary action program. Now, obviously, anybody owning land, whether it's you with your home or the land that they own here, nothing's ever 100%. And to say there's some ironclad zero risk is not reality for anybody. One of the things that made this transaction easier is the fact that the prior owners, ALERG, took out a $15 million environmental liability policy. And part of our deal with them in the purchase agreement is we wanted Regional Water and the city of Avon Lake to be added to the environmental policy as additional insureds. So in terms of risk post-closing, we have a $15 million environmental liability policy to help cover that risk.
That's great news. $15 million might be 10% of what needs to be done eventually. I hope everything you said is true. That's wonderful news. If that is true and it holds, will that report be available to the public?
What we have now has all been made available. We have the phase 1. We've got the prior phase 1 and 2 that Deegan did. And we have the summary memo that he prepared to answer the questions in July we needed answered during due diligence. So there will ultimately be a phase 2 report that will be prepared. And when it is finalized in the coming weeks, then it would be made available.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. And I might add that we have high confidence in what you saw in the summary, that's accurate. And we also have an independent consultant that we're doing a risk assessment according to the wishes of Councilman Shamir, who's not here, but if you remember, he was asking for that. So that's coming. That's not coming tomorrow, but it's coming. So.
Great,
All
I
right.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Gotta go pick up a grandkid. Thanks a lot.
Anyone else? Mr. Zimmerman.
How are you this evening?
All right. How's that knee?
Wonderful. Just did 18 holes and got it back in time just to get here from
Did you
Flint,
shoot as
Michigan.
well as Mr. Ricky, or were you on the course with him?
I was not. So $15 million sounds like a great number. It's a drop in the bucket for when people sue the city because they got problems. That's the problem. They've limited their liability. Now, my other problem is that 45 days of continuance that was granted for the due diligence. I received a report. It was a summary report from Mr. Monroe talking about zinc and nickel and things that are minerals. Nothing that would harm us. It was not conclusive from my standpoint because I didn't receive data where I could draw my own conclusions. I have somebody else already telling me what it is. I don't find that to be information. That's a summary sheet that you say, hey, here, this is what it says, because that's your opinion now. So I have an issue with that. The 45 days magically occur now so that we don't have sessions at City Council. It ended on the 30th. 31st, the mayor signed the documents. Nobody's there. Nobody can question because we don't have meetings for 2 more weeks after that until yet last night. There's a lot of things I think have been done behind closed doors. Very sketchy. Very sketchy. I still don't understand how we can have money that goes between Regional Water and the city employees that get like this. Everybody gets the checks from the same place. Well, who's buying what from who? If the money's all coming from the same place. Now, we have a new problem, and that's the finance director has left. He left on the 1st. Or I'm sorry, he left, the day after documents and has taken a new job in Huron. So I'm asking questions about the man who's in charge of the money, because a lot of times you follow the money. Well, the man who's in charge of the money isn't here anymore. So now we don't know what really went on. I'll have a private meeting with him, though, in the near future. My problem is this entire event has been done in a shroud of cover. And I don't think there's been any transparency to the facts where the people really know what's going on. Citizens are left in the dark again. That's why I still question this coincidental 45 days extra of due diligence to when nobody was in session. You guys weren't in session. City council wasn't in session. We couldn't get information. I'm trying to get it. Mr. Monroe was kind enough to give me the summary. He actually gave it to me before Ms. Gentry received it and the people at the city council. So from my standpoint, that was wonderful. He went beyond his way. But the problem was it was useless information because, as Mr. Shamir says to me, oh, there's no data here. It's just someone's summary. So I have all kinds of real questions about what's going on behind closed doors here. Now, Mr. Phillips will get up here, and I'm sure he'll ask you questions in regards to the legalities of the sale. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there somebody on Facebook?
Yes, there's, you want to handle this one?
You want to, you have a response on Facebook?
We have a quick question from Nick Charles in regards to the storm. Were services interrupted? Any damage to ALRW facilities? And did it affect any construction on the filtration plant?
Anything you have on that, Mr. Urinich?
Aside from a few brief power outages, which were able to have the pumps restarted off of generator, we did not suffer any physical damage.
We didn't have anything at the water plant. It actually just blipped, and we just reset the pumps. Everything was good to go after that. We did have some issues at our ETL1 and ETL2 stations, so we let the generator run until we got over that hurdle. But all in all, I think that we did pretty good.
It's to be covered later in the meeting, but there was some issue with repairs on ETL2.
We ended up having, with the power outage at ETL1, what ended up happening is we had a few water main breaks, but we had to wait for the power company. There ended up being 8 poles that had fallen down right on top of where our pipe is. So we had
power poles?
the power poles. Yeah, we had about 8 of
wood
them.
poles or the steel
Wooden ones.
Okay.
So for safety purposes, we just opened up the bypass and we continued to pump water down to our bulk customers. And we worked together with the power company to build a temporary road. They got everything de-energized, and that's when we repaired our 36-inch.
Mm-hmm. I know it was a great wind event, but was there much flooding in this area? I was getting lots of flooding where I was.
No, it was not too much flooding, no. More wind.
All right, Mr. Phillips, are you ready to go?
Sure. Do I have to give my address like at city council meetings?
No, I could hit your house with a golf ball from my house.
Well, I don't know. Well, I guess you could. It's not that far. Anyway, 461 Windward Way, beautiful Avon Lake, Ohio. Does the water board have a resolution authorizing the purchase of that property? If so, I'd like a copy. Also, I've read the purchase agreement. I don't see anywhere in a purchase agreement, I may have missed it, that there's a requirement of $15 million risk environmental insurance, and that they should be an additional insured.
Insured, yeah.
If there is a policy and the city is an additional insured, I'd like a copy of it because I believe it's a public record. The risk assessment, as was mentioned, we don't have a detail, we only have a summary. But if you look at the purchase agreement, one of the conditions of closing was that any additional detailed documents had to be provided before closing. So if this property closed without that detail, I don't think it's legal. Also, the purchase agreement had a number of conditions during the due diligence period as far as additional soil borings and laboratory tests. To my knowledge, the city hasn't gotten any of that. And I don't know how they can close on a purchase violating the purchase agreement. I understand that when council approved the ordinance 2428, there were conditions that the purchase there had to be detailed documentation. That didn't occur. I believe that's a condition preceding. I understand that the property was bought on July 30th, supposedly, the day before the implosion. I don't know about this $15 million policy, but if you read the purchase agreement, section 702, the representation warranties by ALERG is their liability is limited to $500,000, only covers claims within 9 months. So that seems to be totally contradicted by this $15 million thing. You got an illegal stormwater tap. I sure hope you don't get violations for the Clean Water Act, because we don't know what's going into the lake from that, because we don't have a study on that. All we have is the hydraulics saying that coal yard will handle a certain amount of water based on a 100-year storm. We don't know what the effluent is. We don't know what the discharge is. You got regulations in your water regulations that talk about illegal discharge. So I sure hope the city doesn't get sued. I'd like a copy of any and all land holdings. On your financial statements, you have land. I want to know a detailed itemization of all the land that the regional water owns. I know you own 40 acres close to the animal clinic. You're buying 34. That's 80 acres. I understand you've been buying property behind the car dealer. I understand you may have land other ways. This board isn't in the land business. It isn't in investing in real estate. Your business is provide services for water and sewer. And you can't just become land banking, because that's not your purpose. And in my opinion, it's illegal. You just can't buy land. And buying the land for a park, which is in your minutes, you're not in the business of providing parks. You're in the business of providing clean water and taking care of the sewage. So, check the ORC and you'll realize that that's an illegal activity. You can ask.
Mr. Phillips, can I ask you to continue later in the?
Sure, you can ask Mansour Gavin and they'll tell you that's illegal, because
Okay,
they're co-counsel with me in Lorraine.
Okay, Mr.
I'm done.
Phillips, wait, before you go away, we have some papers that you might be interested in, since you asked for them in Freedom of Information Act. Mr. Urinich has them. You didn't come and pick them up, so would you please take them? Thank you. Anyone else in public speaking?
So we do have a reply from Nick Charles saying, thanks, Greg, appreciate the great service Avon Lake Regional Water delivers.
Okay, thank you.
Settle that.
How's that hand delivery by acting chief utility executive? Mr. Urinich, would you tell us about any correspondence that we have?
I do not have any correspondence, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is the approval of expenditures on your goldenrod sheets. Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
Sure.
Mr. Rush?
Thank you. I move to approve the expenses for Avon Lake Regional Water from June 28th through August the 15th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ricky. Any discussion? Mr. Ricky.
Yeah, just a quick question, and Greg, you may or may not be able to handle this. A lot in the, from number 20 to 45, there's a lot of negatives in there. In other words, money it's in parentheses, so I'm assuming it's overpayments, or what are those?
What fund are you on, Mr. Ricky?
701, all the way between, it's water employees.
Oh, I got you.
But there's a lot of chargebacks, and I'm not sure I understand that.
I can address that.
The items in the parentheses.
Health insurance premiums, sometimes you got medical mutual, you've got a different vendor for vision, a different one for dental. And then you've got employee premiums coming in there too. So there's a lot of back and forth.
That's how that,
so to speak.
okay, it's the
That's how that
premiums
can
catch up
happen.
with
And I'm
the,
not sure exactly
Okay.
when the premiums are paid. I mean, monthly, I'm sure, but as
okay.
far as the time, and you're gonna have, since this is about a 6-week.
Yeah, this is a long one.
there are
Yeah,
gonna
this
be
is a
few
big
more
one.
in there.
That's
So
why we don't usually see those. That's why I was kind of surprised by it, and I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, that's all the health insurance.
Okay, it's all health
And you'll see the
insurance.
same thing in the sewer fund.
And the same, yeah, it was the same thing in the sewer fund, right? Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ricky. Anyone else with questions? I have a question involving several items, Mr. Urinich. In the same fund, 701, you've got, say, 83 through 86 are for chemicals and, bulk materials. And I noticed that the approval authority appears to be Mr. Gator. How does that come to?
That's actually Mr. Gibney. They
Oh,
have these
Gibney.
same initials.
Ah,
If you
okay.
notice the JRG-W referring to the water district.
Oh, I got you.
JRG, and there's a JRGE for the engineer.
It was, so JRGE, then, why is he approving chlorine? That's number 86.
I think that may just be a typo there.
Yeah.
Would you check on that?
I can check on that.
I don't think he would, run
$1,000
anywhere to go approve the chlorine purchase, but it caught my eye and I thought, well, I don't see where that's engineering, so how does that happen? It's important that we have the people that are actually handling the materials to
Correct.
approve them. I first thought I would rationalize it that Mr. Gator does the, bid certifications, and maybe that was it, but that proves not to be the answer. People with similar initials. Okay, thank you, Mr. Urinich. I don't see anything else here. Does anyone else have any ensuing questions? If not, we'll take a vote. All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
They are approved. The next item is step increases and new hire. That's Mr. Urinich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as an information item for the board, Emily Lenz, laboratory analyst, has completed her first year. She is moving from a step 3 to a step 4. Brandon Bennett, water filtration plant operator, he is moving from a step 2 to step 3. And sorry, Emily Lenz, that took effect on July 24th, 24. Brandon's took effect August 7th of 24. And to complete our full complement of customer service staff, we have hired Tisa Lutz. She began as a customer service representative, step 2, July 22nd. She's been working out great. We're excited to have a full staff up there and really get some things moving up there.
Thank you, Mr. Urinich. Any questions on that item? All right, let's move on to project updates. Mr. Kaminsky, it looks like you've got the helm here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Power plant update. ALERG has been removing the debris and processing scrap from the implosion that took place on the 31st. ALERG is also preparing the next implosion, which will be the 2 additional boilers. A date has not been set for this event yet. Following the implosion, we had no adverse effects noted by the Avon Lake Regional Water staff regarding the quality of the drinking water.
Could you expand on that?
So we'll let Greg do it.
I'll jump in. So just based off of all of the testing that they do and the continuous monitoring of water coming into the plants, there were no changes noted. We've continued, we had started prior to the demolition, some additional sampling related to asbestos and everything like that. We have not seen any increases there. Still non-detects in the raw water. So all good news as far as the testing goes.
Okay, good. I wanted to ask too, you mentioned asbestos. How is the air being monitored during such an event?
So there was.
It's not us, but I mean, just for the sake of everybody in the room who lives in Avon Lake, not you. but-
They had 4 sites set up where they had conducted air monitoring. And, they did notice a slight increase in dust around the time of the implosion, but it was nothing that had gone over any of the permissible OSHA exposure limits. So it seemed like pretty much a best case scenario. It went out over the lake, and we have not noticed any effects from that.
Were you witness to it?
I was.
And was it a very big explosion? I saw a video. It was hard to judge.
I was actually expecting more of, I guess, an explosion you could feel. I was standing at the water plant on top of the basins. And I mean, it was definitely like loud firecrackers, but I guess not quite as loud and significant as what we were expecting.
What was the material that was being brought down? Was it like structural steel or was it masonry?
I think it was a little bit of both. It was mostly structural steel.
Which will make less noise than you'll get a big rumble out of the masonry when that goes down. Okay. Mr. Rush, anything?
No.
All right. Please continue.
ETL1 Design Services. Bram Hall continues to develop the development of the base maps for the relocation of the suction lines across railroad tracks in the public right-of-way. Due to the power outages during the recent storm, staff had to deploy to repair ETL1 4 times, unfortunately. Downtime was minimal as our staff has the necessary clamps on hand, and we were able to quickly mobilize so that the bulk customers were minimally affected. Staff did a really good job, and I'm really happy with what the conditions that they had to deal with. They stepped up, and it was flawless.
May I ask, I'll get
Okay.
to you since I'm already talking. May I ask, you mentioned earlier about, sound like utility poles falling on
8 of them.
the easement. And were these like snapped off or were they just fall over from squishy soil or whatever?
A few of them had snapped off, causing the rest of them to kind of topple over.
Okay. So you would have had some shock to the ground when they landed. Does this result in the leaks that you had to fix?
I think that the leaks were more from the power going out and the pressure
Oh, okay.
going a little bit lower and then kicking back on.
Sudden boost in pressure.
Yeah, one of them was an air release, and a few of them were just blowholes,
Okay.
consistent with when you depressurize. When I say depressurize, I'm going from 160 to about 130 and then bouncing back up.
So a water hammer effect.
Yes.
Okay. Anything to add?
Well, I will bring up, and I just want to emphasize and make sure it's the record too, that we keep pushing this project because we're on borrowed time on ETL1. How many leaks have we had between the pump house and Lear Road, would you estimate?
I think we're over 60.
60 repairs on that piece of pipe. We're on borrowed time. We need to keep pushing this project. I mean, I've been on the board again for what, a year and almost a year and a half, and we're still working on this. We need to put pressure on Bram Hall, pressure on everybody to get this thing going. We got it all approved. We got the rest of the engineering done, and I even wonder if we should start working on some of the other things while we're working on this underpass issue. So I really think that this can't just drag on and on and on. It's got to have a little pedal to the metal on it a little bit and make this thing happen. Oomph. Do you
Okay.
agree, Mr. Chairman?
I do. That's
Okay.
why we didn't waste any time approving the project or
No, I mean, this
Getting it
project's
to
been
the
approved
point
for a
of
long
bids.
time.
I think one of the delays was we didn't get enough bids at first, and we
Yeah.
did, isn't that correct?
Well, we're waiting on easements, and I don't know where we stand with Mr. Ebert on easements. That was a big holdup. The original holdup I remember was easements. I don't
That has
know.
been an ongoing.
Well, you got to get permission from everybody, but
The railroad hasn't been exactly.
no, and the railroad has not been forthcoming at all to help us. But I'm just saying, our bulk customers are what pay the bills around here, and we need to really make sure we don't run into trouble on that line with 60 repairs on a 3-mile piece of pipe. That's pushing the limits, I think. So.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Ricky. Anyone else with comments on that? Okay, let's move on then to the SCADA communication upgrade.
We'll start with the water filtration plant improvements first.
Oh, well, you thought I was gonna skip your, what if I wanted to do it in a different order? I'm sorry, I had turned the page and didn't, I thought we were still on the item we were reading.
So Great Lakes Construction Company has been relocating underground assets located within the layout of the new chemical feed building so that there will be no interference with the foundation of the new structure, and so that these assets can be located easily if we ever needed to get back into them. The sludge force main has been relocated, and they're working on the storm sewers along with verifying the existing electrical duct banks so they won't interfere. They are planning on the reinforcement of the duct banks in locations that will be exposed with the necessary excavations.
Can you kind of physically describe where all that is located? I get kind of roughly where the chemical feed is, but.
So they would be on the northeast section of the plant, right by Central High Service. We had like a little grassy area over there, and that's where the new chemical feed will be. And the sludge line was running north and then going west. So we kind of relocated it to jog around the building. So it comes out, goes east, north, and then west.
There's not much grass left in that plant.
No, not
We
really.
filled it all up.
It's a very tight area, and, you know, with previous expansions,
Yeah.
the generator and switchgear in that area, it's a very busy area to be working, so.
Yeah, it's definitely, we're starting to shoehorn a lot of stuff into that small footprint.
Mr. Ricky?
Yeah, I got just a question. I don't know how our contract's written, but are we going to get hit with any charges because of the power issues or any of the events of the storm from our contractor? Are they saying anything like we lost time or any?
They weren't affected whatsoever. by
Okay,
the,
that's, I just was curious that how we write something like that, because that's kind of an act of God, but I just wondered if they were exploring extras or anything because of that issue. Okay, thank you.
I have a question related to Mr. Ricky's concerns in a general way. That now that we've torn down some buildings there, it seems, as I saw the drone footage of the plant and all, it seems like that gate off of Lake Road doesn't look like it may be as secure as it should be.
Which, are you talking about the west or the east?
Between the old building and the new building, the old settling tanks and.
That is a temporary setup that they put in there. That is just so they could get the trucks in and out.
Well, I think what I'm saying is that doesn't look as secure as like the rest of the plant, and I think I would give an eyeball to that.
We'll definitely let the contractor know.
Right. Security is a very important thing.
Sure.
In this day and age, unfortunately. And I literally just noticed it from the drone footage and thought, well, that doesn't look like the kind of gate we would use, that kind of thing. And as I said, it doesn't look like it would be everything that I would want it to be. Even if it's temporary, it doesn't, whenever the, let's say, attempted incursion happens, you want to be as strong, you don't want to be the weak point, right? So, okay, thank you. Now, can I please have the SCADA?
Save the best for last.
Okay.
So the SCADA communications upgrade, ALRW team members, along with representatives from both our IT and our OT network contractors, will meet with Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, cybersecurity specialists on August 28th of 24 to review ALRW's cyber security practices and equipment. Staff will go over the proposed water filtration plant server room plan so engineering can proceed and finalize the design and proceed with this project.
Okay. Any questions on that? All right. Then it's time for the CUO report, which is sort of like the CUE report, only given by the CUO.
So I have one item to update the board on, the West Ridge Interconnect, the emergency interconnect that we had partnered with rural Lorraine County Water Authority and the city of Elyria. On July 18th, the city of Elyria had some electrical issues at their filtration plant. They were unable to pump water for a given time. They had contacted us. We had set the ball in motion. We went out there, we opened that interconnect. We supplied 6.83 million gallons of water to the city of Elyria through rural Lorraine County Water Authority's pump station and line. And I think that, that went off without a hitch. I'm not aware of any issues that were discovered in an actual test of utilizing that. So we have tested water going one way through that interconnect.
That's the
Under real
easy way,
world
right?
connection.
Coming from here to Elyria because our pressure is higher.
That is
Yes.
correct.
Pressure is higher, no pumps involved.
Right.
And the only thing that we have to really pay attention to is just to make sure that we're not disrupting rural Lorraine County Water's filling of the tanks. So they were monitoring and everything went flawless.
How long of a period did that go on for?
Oh, that was about 36 hours, I want to say.
Yeah, 32.
Substantial. And
Yeah.
so the citizens of Elyria experienced no interruption
No.
as a result. For the benefit of the audience, whether here on TV, I don't know which population is higher, but this is a case, if Mr. Phillips was in here, I'd tell him to his face, where we went and bought real estate out, not in Avon Lake, out in Elyria Township, and we found a place where our lines crossed there so that we could do what in the fire service is called mutual aid. So in this case, we aided Elyria. In our case, supposing we had an outage and they could supply using pumps because their pressure is lower there, we have to pump it up to our pressure there, but keeping all of the southern part of Lorraine County supplied with water. So that's an example of where we're legitimate when we buy property. Okay.
Absolutely.
That was all I had, Mr.
That's
Chairman.
all for Mr. Urinich. Okay, a member reports and miscellaneous. Mr. Ricky.
Yes, a couple things. I had the honor yesterday to attend the Building and Utilities meeting yesterday evening as our representative, and nothing there that really concerned us. A lot of talk about the implosion. I didn't understand why that fell under that committee, but apparently it does. But talk about zoning for the coal pile property was one of the comments. So that I attended that meeting. I stayed for the Zach Arnold's meeting. Which one was that? Economic Development. I stuck around for that and learned that there's a wine restaurant going in Avon Lake next to the service center, which I thought was very interesting, and talk about the infrastructure in that area as far as the number of lanes and roads and everything there, which is always a bottleneck for everybody. And then I stayed around for the collective committee meeting as well, and just listened to what was going on and what's going to be on the agenda for 2 weeks from now when they have their next meeting. I also had the opportunity to meet the new HR director, Lynn, and I forget her last name. Kernia, very nice woman. Got a chance to introduce myself and found out who she is. And she comes very highly recommended by some friends of mine who knew her in her previous endeavors and spoke very, very highly of her. And again, yesterday I got a chance to meet her. I also just want to bring up that we talk about information, and these two things I brought with me tonight are just full of data and information. And I think they're very professionally done by our organization here. I really think when you talk about transparency and stuff, people need to read these. I mean, I read them and they come in your mail. This one is mailed to you directly. This one, I think, comes in in your water bill. I think this is where we get this one. Is that correct? This comes in the water bill. But this is part of being transparent. It has all the test data and shows all of our test information in here that we're required by law. We're not just doing this because we want to, but we need to let the residents know. So we try not to hide anything here, and we try to put it together in a very professional package. And I think the organization does a very good job of that. So I just wanted to pass that on as that. And I think Mrs. Gentry has a question.
I just had a question for residents who are are part of a condo or apartment complex. How would they don't necessarily get a water bill? Is that available online?
I don't know how you.
I would say it's on the website, isn't it?
It's available online and at places where, like, that have common areas, they do get placed there as
Okay.
well. So for like apartment building, they would be distributed there. Library, several public locations do have copies of those available to pick up. And they're always available at the main office too, if they want to come in and get a physical copy.
And this has like our rates are right here, but we're not hiding anything. And I think this comes out 4 times a year. Every quarter we come out with one of these, or
I believe
I think every quarter we have this, and
water
then
bill,
this is our annual report, so to speak, on the quality of the water. So again, I had those in my file, and I thought I'd bring them because transparency is a big issue right now. And again, I think we do a pretty good job of meeting the requirements, not only of the EPA, but of our customers, to let them know what exactly we're doing here, and try to keep them informed as much as we can. So I just bring that up. That's all, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, Mr. Ricky. Anyone else? Okay, time for public speakers again. Ladies and gentlemen, any public speaking? Anybody want to flag down Mr. Phillips? He had more to,
I'd like to tell them to be quiet.
huh? Well, truthfully, a lot of these things we couldn't necessarily answer in detail that he's bringing up, not particularly you guys, but feel free to call staff. The number rings here, and
No, I would just had one question, whether or not, I know that they did seismic when they did the implosion. I'm assuming they're
I
going to
think
be
they
doing that.
did, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you guys were aware of any issues with the pipes or anything that had happened. Okay.
Greg sensed the seismicity through his feet.
So we had a house on Carriage Lane. The entire living room ceiling collapsed, and it was
Not from this.
allegedly, they're still doing the investigation. It took a few
From
days
this?
from the implosion. Whether or not it was directly attributed is being debated right now. So that's why I was asking if we've noticed, if we've done any leak testing or whatever.
I mean,
I don't know.
anecdotally, it didn't sound that violent, but who knows? A lot of the houses have plaster, you know what I mean? And the plaster could be just aged. And who knows? It
Yeah.
may take only that little
It was
bit of vibration.
all the way by the high school. I heard it down on Walker, so it was loud.
I can feel
I
the
think everybody
train.
can hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can hear it
Yeah.
over
I
time.
didn't feel it. I
I didn't
Just
feel
sounded
it
like a
either,
firework
but yeah.
at my house.
Thunder.
You know what I mean?
Thunder.
Like, I can
Thunder,
feel the
yeah.
trains at my house
Right.
when it goes by, and that's just, I mean, there's hardly even any joints on the tracks anymore, and you can feel the,
Yeah.
whatever, like slightly out around wheels or something like that, you can feel it. I did notice, I thought you were gonna be talking about the storm. I saw on Wolf Road today in Bay Village, wow, some gigantic trees all down on one property, like by that, by the middle school there. And, I guess kids were, no, it wouldn't have been in school, it was during the summer. But,
Thankfully.
wow, yeah.
But yeah, so
I was
the,
amazed.
I was surprised to hear that you guys were impacted by power poles. I didn't realize that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, there was quite a few of them.
Yeah, I knew that they had gone down. I just didn't know that it impacted you guys as well.
Yeah.
So, and did you say that they were split or they were just toppled over?
I'll show you some pictures.
Okay. Yeah, because it was surprising to me how many trees weren't pushed over. They've snapped. It was crazy.
But sincerely, do feel free to contact Greg or Rob with anything that you feel could be more adequately explained. As far as Mr. Phillips' list, really, he could put any of that in writing and or meet with staff. And, I would just tell everybody to be patient. We're going to satisfy everybody with what we're doing. It's really a step in the right direction. And one of the things is the coal pile's not there anymore. That's better than having 25 feet of coal. That's all gone. And then the remediation is really going to be relatively superficial on the surface because the surface would not have been typically disturbed because of the coal on top of it. So you'll have a superficial layer, I would think, of residual materials, but on the whole, we're moving in what I would say is the right direction for Avon Lake. And the summary report, incidentally, that's basically how you would be advised prior to getting all the details, You get the scouting report, and then when you start throwing the pitches, you see how accurate that is, But I think we're in good shape. Honestly. Okay, anyone else? Mr. Zimmerman, go ahead.
Please. So this pipe that Mr. Ricky's describing, I don't know where this is or what it is, or
ETL.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, Eastern Transmission Line, that goes down more or less north and south till it gets to Avon, cuts over and goes down to rural Lorraine.
How big a pipe?
36 inch.
Thank you.
There's two of them, I'm not sure, one of them might be 24, one's 36,
So they change sizes.
yeah, so
36.
that's where the bulk water customers south of Avon get their water.
I was just curious because I didn't understand that. I had never heard it before.
Well, what we found out, Mr. Zimmerman, is that there's stray currents all along the railroad track and the high tension lines there evidently affect some of the components of the pipe that was chosen at the time they built that, causing premature failure due to corrosion has been what we have found. So the new pipe will be polyethylene, which was hard to get at the time we specified it. I think it's relatively back to normal on that, but that's the way to go for water lines now. Can't take the corrosion on those big pipes.
So Mr. Ricky says that he was at the meeting last night, which I can verify. We were seated rather closely together. The second meeting, Mr. Phillips was at the podium. And during his time there became quite a heated argument to the point where Mr. Phillips tried to reclaim his place and told one of the council members to shut up. Now, we all would agree that that's not necessarily the best way to handle the situation. But Mr. Ricky then jumps in and starts calling for decorum, even though he's seated like we are in the gallery, which we all know we're supposed to be quiet and sit there and watch. And that's what we're supposed to do. And so I told him, I said, it's not your place, it's not your meeting. And he tells me that I'm threatening him. Now, I have a problem with that. As an elected official by the citizens of Avon Lake, I don't understand why a representative would be able to make those kind of statements and accusations. I found it to be very unprofessional and highly irregular. Didn't appreciate it at all. Didn't think that people who were elected would be acting like that. Now, as the meeting went on, it started to calm back down. Mr. Koss got up and went and called the police, which we thanked him for doing when the chief showed up. But anyhow, the point of the matter is, I don't understand why an elected official would be acting that way towards a citizen who may or may not have voted for him, but surely has the ability to change that. Now, I went on your website today to find out what his term is, how long. All it says now is it expired at December 31st of 2023. So the web page isn't even active, or I shouldn't say that. It's not at least correct in regards to the time, because we're now talking in 23. Did he just get reelected? Said he had been appointed to fill other people's roles over the time? I'm trying to understand it. I called Rob twice today. I did not know he was taking his son down to school, which we all understand as parents of collegiate people. It's a method by which we all have to operate. And I find it important to be there to help them get acclimated and all those things. I have a daughter in second year of law at Ohio State. So I totally got it 5 years ago when she started. Anyhow, I'd like to know some of those answers in regards to everybody's term, when they're up, when they're not, when they can. How do you recall somebody here at the water department? All those kinds of factors so that I have the knowledge in the future to move on those things if I so desire.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the website, we can get that updated. I was not aware that those had not been updated, so that will be taken care of.
I also gave Mr. Urinich some things to fix on the website myself today. So. Mr. Shamir, would you like to speak?
Actually, I do.
3 minutes.
Thank you.
We'll be flexible, but please.
Thank you. The question that I've got is, we as the council approved the investigation and the purchase process based on an understanding that there would be a report, and that is in the minutes of the meeting. So that report was supposed to be back to the council. I have been asking for that report. 45-day extension was given. I asked for an update. Nothing was given. I once again asked for that information through the law director, through Mr. Monroe, and that communication effectively came back, information is not ready. On the 5th of August, I was given a summary, a synopsis, which is useless. It did not pertain any information. And that was an agreement that we had. We had an agreement with you guys. When you came to the council, that agreement was, you will bring that information and present it to us and tell us what the findings were and allow us to ask questions. That was good faith. And that good faith was not delivered by you guys. And that is an issue. If I stand there and I come to an agreement, that agreement holds. And it's our right to understand what went through. It was $300,000 from the city that went towards that investigation. That property has issues which we'd like to understand. What are those issues and what the findings were before the purchase, not after the purchase. So I also have an issue with our law director and his firm representing both ends of this. I think that is problematic because that allows this conversation to happen in back rooms. That is not the standard in any industry. To me, I find it kind of unkosher. So I would like to get that information. I would like to review that information. I want to sit with the consultant and you guys to go through that information. And I want to know why this purchase was done before that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shamir. I mentioned earlier that we do have your risk assessment analysis underway. You had asked for previously, and that will be shared when we have it.
It's not the risk assessment that I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is the full report.
I understand what you're looking for. I'm adding that we have, in order to make sure that you're satisfied in every way, we have added that to our menu of things that we're providing for all of our sake, because all of us want the right thing for Avon Lake. You, me, and everyone else here.
I certainly do agree, but the risk assessment, you know, when we're talking about a risk assessment, the risk assessment should have been done before the connection. That is how you do things. A risk assessment is the first step to understand what is the potential release that you can have. It's not something that we do after we've connected and discharged the lake. That is an afterthought. So that risk assessment, I would like to see it and I would like to understand it, but it does not represent what happened, because at the time of the release, the area had no cover. It had no sediment control. I've got the video of April 10th, 2023. The aerial video that shows there is no sediment control cover, and the fill that is out there is open to run into that pond and be discharged into the lake. So I do understand and I do appreciate that risk assessment, but I would like to sit down and have a conversation on the basis of that.
And you missed the part of you came in about 2 minutes later.
Well, I am sorry because I was coaching, so I literally,
Let's,
my son, I left him in the car.
yeah, don't leave him with the dog. At least don't leave the dog in there. You can leave.
No. It's
Anyway.
cold enough out there.
I'm just kidding you. I made the exact point to your team here that they can get any answer that we're not able to answer here. Go to staff. If it comes to you're still not satisfied, we'll have a meeting that directly addresses this stuff. Right now, we're on our first meeting after being absent for a month and a half, and I don't think anybody's as up to date as you are on a lot of the stuff. So.
I was told by Mr. Ebert that this report is being sent to me and to keep it to myself. And then this gentleman showed up my front door with the same report saying, I've received this through Freedom of Information Act. I thought you might understand what it says because I don't. So he brought it to me and I'm looking at this, what Mr. Ebert had sent me, not to have a conversation even with the council, was in the hands of Mr. Zimmerman. So it's I'm willing and able to sit down, and that's all I want to do, sit down and have a conversation.
I think a demonstration of your goodwill. I hope you understand that our will is the same way, and we all want a good result from what's happening on the lake shore. And I think we'll all just try, as we're doing tonight, I think we've done a very good job of everybody stay civil. We can talk through a lot of this stuff.
Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mr. Phillips, you didn't finish with your, other half of your book, the New Testament. Let's do that.
Well, I asked Mr. Monroe if there were any permits, demolition or otherwise, for the power plant. He indicated to me there were none, but if you look at your regulations, whenever there's a demolition of a building that has water connections and sewer, you need a permit. So that property had water and sewer provided to it, so there's no permit on that. I understand that we sell water to outside Avon Lake. I guess it's ETL1 and ETL2. Are those separate funds? And are there contracts between the ALRW and the sale of the water? Because I'm going to ask them for those records. There's a $300,000 grant that was transferred from the city to the water department based on brownfield. For brownfield, I'm going to ask for a separate accounting on that. I want to know where the money went, where the funds were, the expenditures, invoices for that, because there seems to be, we hire a consultant who has done nothing for the city. So I want an accounting to see if that money was very well spent. Somebody indicated that implosion sounded like firecrackers. I was there. It wasn't firecrackers. It was like the grand finale. My wife heard it where I live, okay, the sound. So it wasn't a soft sound. It was quite big. In fact, that implosion violated the city of Avon Lakes regulations, the noise ordinance. Nothing's supposed to take place before 8 o'clock. Contractors can't run their machines before 8 o'clock, but yet we allow somebody to basically blow up a building, okay, boilers before 8 o'clock. I asked the mayor, I said, it's illegal. I sent an email to the police chief, the fire chief, okay, and the mayor, who's safety director. And you know what they did? They did nothing, okay? So I guess,
However,
why do we
don't-
have laws on the books, okay? Why do we have laws on the books if we're not gonna
Okay,
enforce it?
Mr. Phillips, as
So-
I'm sure you know, that's actually a city matter.
Well-
We don't have any authority whatsoever over the city.
No.
We cooperate with the
There
city.
were, I got a monitoring result, and there was asbestos and mercury. Obviously, they were less than the
Wow.
limit, but they were, okay? I got pictures, okay? I went down there. The dust didn't go all into the lake. I got pictures that show it went to the east, okay, too. Some of it went to the west because some of the dust went past the big stack and the boilers were to the east of it. So it just didn't go into the lake. It went toward Miller Park. It went towards the east. And Mr. Shamir can tell you that, you know, we say it was all safe. We say nothing was harmful, but we don't have a soil analysis. Nobody took tests of the soil to determine what was contaminated or not. And that's just an example of, you know, measuring twice, cutting once, and it's not being done. I mean, this is being done carelessly, ignoring the health, safety, welfare of the public.
Can I ask what soil you're talking about? Do you mean after the implosion, like
Yes.
all over the place? Like
Yeah,
we should have
soil.
sampled like, miles and miles of city, or what, is that what you're asking?
Did you take soil sample in Miller Road Park?
We don't
Did you?
take samples.
Why, who would be responsible for that?
Well,
Avon
I
Lake
don't know. I
Regional
think-
Water?
I
Maybe
think-
you.
I think the city should have done it for the health,
Okay,
safety,
but-
and welfare of the
right, but
residents.
We're Avon Lake Regional Water, right?
So-
So we took care of the lake, you know.
I think the.
Well, the
our
water
issue
goes
with
from Miller Road
demolition
into the
is
lake.
gonna be with
Yeah.
the building department,
Yeah.
which is in the city. And I would, because I want to try to give you the opportunity to say everything, try not to spend a lot of time on the city stuff. If you have
Well-
stuff for us, complaints about the water or the way we're doing what we do, by all means. But I can't do anything about the way the city is run. I mean, that's.
Well,
the way
you
the
jointly
city-
bought the property, okay?
Okay,
You jointly bought the property, therefore you're jointly responsible for the result of that property and the fallout, okay? You both jointly bought the property. You're one and the same entity. Okay, you're not a separate entity incorporated separately, you're together. So when you say you're not the city, well, you are to some extent.
okay, Mr. Phillips.
It was a
you're
joint,
being
it
very
was a joint
specific.
venture.
So let's be a
So-
little more specific. We did not buy the property where the demolition occurred.
Well, the purchase
Thank you
agreement is in
very
your
much.
name. Purchase agreement is in your name.
That's not the property
Where's
that
the
where the
property?
demolition occurred.
Well-
Thank you.
Mr.
Do you have
Monroe,
anything of substance here? Are we gonna?
no, I just
have
got one
everybody
other,
complains until they're exhausted or what?
no, I just got one other comment. Mr. Monroe has been very cooperative in his public records request. And I appreciate that, and I'll make my public records request to him.
I think you
All right.
should. And
I mean, if you don't like my criticism, that's too bad.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
it wasn't a question on not liking your criticism. You want to question facts? I can question facts too.
Well, I'll get the facts through public records.
Okay, and we have, as you will admit, maybe, that you have received everything you've asked for, and in spades, if I'm not mistaken, so I don't think you have any complaint about that.
I haven't complained about your response to public
Okay.
records, have I?
Thank you for that.
Have I?
Okay, we will close the public input section of the meeting, and What do we have next? Adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Oh, we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Schnabel. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.